Here we can see the exhaust manifold, which, as you can see here, needs a thorough cleanup because it is filled with carbon, which can lead to lots and lots of loss in power. Moving on, I will be taking off this head as well, and upon first glance you can see that it is missing one of the nuts which hold the exhaust manifold, which could lead to a slight leak upon firing. Be taking apart the manifold, taking mostly the whole nut, because it's coming out complete with the nut itself, because the stud is supposed to stay in the head, but as you can see from here, it's so rusted. Now I've taken apart finally the exhaust manifold, and now I'll be proceeding to taking off the cylinder head. Upon taking apart this head, it seems that when trying to unscrew them, it's clear enough that the feeling it gives you. And this one seems like it was less torque, because it's easier to pull out. That one was very hard. As you can see also, the bolts, some of them are dry, some of them are wet and filled with oil. It goes to show that we have some leakage within the gasket. The gasket is full of oil, so it had leaked most likely. Also here we have some corrosion in the water chamber. The galleries are quite filthy, as we can see here. The exhaust ports are far worse off than the previous head, which, as we can see, let me see if I can focus, we have a lot of corrosion in the valve area. Let's see if I can get some light through. There we go. Now let's move on the engine compartment again, and the second issue I will be tackling is taking apart the exhaust manifolds along with the turbos. More updates regarding the pistons. You'll see now the major issue which this car has as regards to performance and compression. So, as you can see here, we have this piston and it has a lot of free play. Let me see. Here you go. It has a lot of free play bobbing up and down. You can see clearly on this one, the upper ring, you can see there's a huge gap. Let's see if I can focus. You have a huge gap on the upper part here, as you can see on this part. Let's see. You can hear the clicking noise that's coming from the piston. Has a lot of movement. That's not supposed to happen. And the main problem with this engine was that the rings are a bit worn out. So as you will see here, there is a lot of free play, a lot of movement. That is not normal as regards to how a piston should function. But being a 90 degrees V6 engine, the problem is that this one has a lot of movement as regards to trying to keep steady. It pushes down, it comes back on the other side. So it has a lot of wear, which mostly is due to being revved hard upon being cold. Now, this car had lots of previous owners, so I cannot say what's been done to it beforehand, so all I can say is according to what I can see here now, because these results are the final picture to the whole problem. As you can see, the bore is pretty smooth, all it needs just a minor cleanup, but the rings are totally worn out. Now I'll be taking out the turbo exhaust, the whole unit, and then I'll be taking it apart on the bench. Here we have the exhaust disengaged from the catalytic converter, and now instead of trying to mangle myself through to take out the exhaust manifold with the exhaust pipe, instead of trying to separate them from each other, keep them together, I'll separate that part and just disengage all the piping to the turbo and just lift it from there, as you will see. Now it's time for the second part of the removal of the exhaust. The right one has been removed now. And I'll be taking the other exhaust unit. I'll just take out the remaining pipes and disengage the exhaust pipe from the catalytic converter, and I'll just pull this one out. Now it's time to finally remove it. Here we have the engine bay without turbos, and also we can clearly see now the problem with the engine mounts. They have completely flattened due to being covered in oil, and also this will always lead to the rubber within to become more elastic, yet it will not hold the engine properly. It will have a lot of free play and leading to the engine dropping, as I will show you here. Here we can see the problem firsthand. As you can see, that mount should be way up here, while the cover has elongated down to here, which is leaving the engine lower by at least 2 inches. Here I have the turbos. One of them I removed the pipe from it, and it's clear to see that the springs that hold the pipe to it is broken, which will lead to a lot of clunking noises. On the other hand, this one was also with a damaged one here, but 2 of them remained solid, yet still it did not seal properly, which resulted in excessive heat in the engine bay, because it leaked from here, also from here, as I will show you. You can clearly see here a lot of carbon has escaped, also on this side. This one was not properly sealed. From here we had a lot of exhaust leaking out because this bolt was not there. This one wasn't properly sealed. This one was sealed up to its torque value. Yet these 2 leaked, which resulted in excessive heat upon driving, which was very noticeable. Also I needed to take note of this very badly built exhaust pipe, because as you can see from here we have the exhausts coming out and a very narrow S-curve, which will lead to excessive amount of pressure, which that one is not as bad as this one. So the pipe starts with a certain amount of diameter, which is reduced over here in the S-curve and widens up again after a certain bit. So this and the other pipe are not balanced at all, which will lead the turbos to have an unbalanced amount of pressure upon exhaust, and this one was pretty much clogged up, which could lead to damaging the exhaust gaskets. On the other hand, the other turbo didn't suffer that much damage. Mostly upon close inspection next to each other you could see clearly why. So the curves are not alike and not properly aligned. So this one sits like so, and this one sits like so. Apparently, when being done, this was not calibrated by measurements. They just fitted the pipes just to say that they got the job done. But you can see here to here, this one has a longer angle. This one has a double narrow S-curve. This one has a wide S-curve. So as you can see, on this one it would have a lot of back pressure, which the problem would surface onto the exhaust manifold. I may be wrong on certain assumptions I've taken so far, but one thing will lead to another, which you will clearly see as I will be inspecting each element one by one. So I will continue to take the engine apart, and I will proceed now by taking the crank assembly, the oil filter out, and starting by taking off the sump and the oil pump. Now, before proceeding any further, I would like also to share with you the reason as to why I'm taking the engine apart in this manner, instead of just undoing the subframe and just lifting the car up and pulling the whole engine with the wheels out. One could say that's easier because you have the old engine exposed and you just take apart whatever you need and it will be over and before you know it. The main reason I'm taking apart all the parts one by one, bit by bit, and according to its location, it's because logging all the damages as to what damaged what and what way one thing led to the other. Like typical example I will show you here. It could be the failure of the power steering a few months ago. For example, now after inspecting the exhaust leak, here I could show you that, so we had the exhaust manifold here which was leaking, and it was leaking in this manner. And here, where my hand is, used to be the hydraulic pump of the power steering. So that was under a lot of heat, actually immense amount of heat and pressure from the leaking exhaust, which here had the pipes of the hydraulic, which were rock solid instead of being flexible, such as, let me see if I can find one. I can't even find one which is quite soft, because they are all very hard. You can't even just flex them a bit, nothing, no matter how much you push. The heat really hardened the material, and also it damaged one, it ruptured it, and it led to leaking everywhere. Also the hydraulic then leaked onto the body, which led to some rusting here, which I will be repairing. Also the heat damaged the air conditioning piping unit, which I think some of them have to be replaced. Many kind of similar damages just because of one leak, but I would have never known that if I never taken the parts from where they stay. Because now, after this, I will be checking out the lower part of the car and to see what was damaging what as regards to the engine being dropped by near approximately 2 inches. And also I would like to see why is there a lot of rattling, apart from the fact, as I've shown you before, the fact that the rings here have movement, which is not normal for a car of 25,000 miles on the clock. Basically that's just about it. I may be working with some unusual methods and maybe take some assumptions which will be later noted as I've taken them wrong. Also, if there anyone who would like to suggest similar methods or better methods for me to work with, I would gladly appreciate it. But until then, for now, I'm just taking things apart one by one and noticing what's been done to it, what the engine has been subdued to, what are the limits now the engine has surpassed, all of those things all together, and then I'll just collect all the information and decide what to modify, what to repair, what to alter. I already have some plans with the induction and exhaust system, because basically I can increase much more horsepower just by balancing them both. both the intake onto the exhaust. Just by balancing that, the car will improve greatly in reliability and also performance-wise. And then upon assembly, I will have some help from professional people, because I do not have tools. Also, I've built several engines and several gearboxes in the past, mainly one of a Land Rover. The whole transmission system, took it apart, rebuilt it with the transfer gearbox, the differential, axles, basically. So that taught me a lot. And then I've built me the green bike, the one you saw beforehand. I've had 3 other bikes before that, mainly all of them in which I did the service. This time on this car, since it's not mine, I'm not taking any risks for now. So I'll be taking it to professionals, and also I'll be working side by side and performing the repair along with them, so as to them showing me the proper methods and proper techniques, mostly old school techniques. So now I'll be proceeding with taking the lower part of the engine out, and I will show you the progress as we go along. So thanks for watching.